Hello, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today I'm sharing a layout for Papermaze using the Simple Stories Jingle All The Way collection. So I had loads that I wanted to get on this layout, so many ideas, so I had to come up with a way to squeeze it all on. So I've made two gorgeous little envelopes here from patterned papers, and I've added gold hand stitching all around the edges. So for those papers, the green one is the Happy Ho 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 paper, and the more red one is the My Christmas Wish. And I just cut the envelope templates on my silhouette. Now this that I'm backing here is one of the 3x4 elements, and it's the one that looks like a letter to Santa. Now I wanted to get my little boy's letter to Santa on the layout, so what I've done is I've trimmed the 3x4 element out, and then I've stuck my little boy's letter to the back of it, just using one section, and folded it in such a way that it will still open out and can still be read. Now I'm not mean, we did actually post his letter to Santa, it's just that Santa had to make do with a photocopy this year because I wanted to keep the original for this layout. So sorry Santa, but you got a photocopy. So when we walked to the post office, the postbox to post his letter, I took loads and loads of photos, and I had 4 favourites, and I really wanted to get them all onto this layout. But trying to squeeze everything on would have been a bit of a challenge, so I've decided to make another interactive element, kind of like a flip page with 4 photos on. So I've backed all of my photos onto white cardstock, and then I'm using different patterned papers from the collection to add a border. So that first photo, that is the B-side of Santa Squad I've used. Then for another one I use the B-side of My Christmas Wish, which is this pretty holly pattern I'm using now. And then for another one I use the Happy Ho Ho Ho. I think I actually use both sides of that. Let me have a look. Yes, I've used both sides of Ho Ho Ho. So what I do is I mount all of those onto patterned papers. Then I mark out a strip of white cardstock big enough to hold them, and then I'm just scoring lines. So what I'm planning to do is fold them like a concertina, like a fan, so that I can fold them up, tuck them in one of the envelopes, but then still have them available to bring out and have a look at them all. So I've got 4 photos that I'm going to use on this layout, but I've made sure that my strip of cardstock here has 6 sections, because I'm going to fill the middle gap with one of the 3x4, 2 of the 3x4 cut apart elements. So I've got one that says Be Jolly, and the other one says Be Merry, and I really loved both of those cut aparts, so I'm really glad to have got them on a layout. So I just stick my photos down one either end of my fan, and then the element, the 3x4 cut apart element, is going to sit in the middle, and then that can be folded back on itself and tucked in an envelope. Now a couple of the patterned papers, where I'd cut the envelopes from them, I didn't have a big enough area to back my photos, so I've just had to fill in a tiny corner here and there. And obviously, because I'd backed my photos on both white cardstock and patterned paper, they were now bigger than the 3x4 elements. So I'm backing the 3x4 element onto white cardstock to match the photos, and then I'm using a sheet of green basil cardstock that matches the collection, just to mat that a second time, and that makes it the same size as my photos, and it just sits on my concertina card much better. Just trimming it down to make sure it fits, and you can see there how it's going to open out. I did exactly the same thing on the reverse, so 2 photos either end, and I put the 3x4 element in the middle. So here it is all finished, and I've got 6 elements there, and that is going to tuck inside the envelopes. So to seal the envelopes, I first used double-sided sticky tape and just on the 2 edges you see at the bottom there, and tucked that bottom flap up. However, once I'd got my interactive elements in, because they're quite bulky, it was forcing the envelopes back open. So I've had to go back over that with some glossy accents and just kept some pressure on it for a while, just put a book on top of them just to make sure they held. So another part I was desperate to get on this layout was this little Postbox cut file from Pear Tree Cut Files, and it was just perfect for this layout. So I've cut it onto white cardstock, and then I'm backing it with red basil cardstock. This is a textured cardstock, and it looks really pretty finished. I won't make you watch me back the whole cut file. I do the same for each section of it. I just draw around it, cut it out, and then glue it back down, and then trim off any excess. So I use red for the bulk of the Postbox, and then I add a bit of black textured cardstock for the kind of letterbox slot and the bottom. And then the cut file itself has got, or the Postbox itself has got snow in a couple of sections. So I've just used white cardstock and covered it with an iridescent white glitter to make it sparkle a bit. And there it is finished. So I'm just trying to figure out the placement of how I'm going to fit all of this onto my layout. And this is what I do in the end. I have the 2 envelopes kind of offset in the centre, and then I slot the Postbox in between them. I'm using a mix of both double-sided tape and glossy accents to hold my envelopes down on my white cardstock. I wasn't confident that double-sided tape alone was going to hold them because they are quite bulky, and where I was overlapping them, the red one had to be propped up with some foam, so I've used just self-adhesive foam tape just to bring it up to the same level as that green one, because the interactive elements inside these envelopes are really bulky. So it's just a case of making sure everything was on the same level so that it didn't kind of get bent and pop off the page. And then my Postbox will sit in the middle there. It took me all the way until the end of this layout to realise that it was a bit wonky, so I had to kind of rip it off once I'd finished my layout and just straighten it up a bit. So for my title, I'm using the word Santa. That's from the foam stickers, and I've also made the word Dear just with some small thickers from my stash. So my title is Dear Santa, and I decide to pop it over on the right in the end. I was just there with the sticker, just sticking it repeatedly to the back of my hand, just trying to remove some of the sticky just in case I needed to move my title. So another thing I wanted to get on this layout was that cute little 2x2 element there from the 2x2 element sheet. It's a letter to Santa, it's a special delivery, and it's got naughty or nice list approved. And I really wanted to get that on as well, so I just slot that underneath my envelope there. And then I wanted to have kind of a little pull tab for my letter to make it a bit easier to bring it out of the envelope. So I've pulled this little thing here, it's kind of like a tab. That's from the Journal Bits and Pieces pack, and I just fold it over the top there and stick it either side of that 3x4 element, and that now gives me something to easily pull my little boy's letter in and out of that envelope. And then I just move on to fill in the gaps with some embellishments. So I've pulled out some bits here, they're from the Bits and Pieces pack. I've got that Santa and the mailbox over on the left, and on the right there I've got a sack of mail. It says North Pole Express Mail. So they are all from the Bits and Pieces pack. Then I've also got the sticker sheet here, and I pull out another little mailbox which I sit over to the right. A letter to Santa with a little gingerbread man on it, which is perfect because my little boy loves gingerbread, and also a couple of the word stickers one that says Dear Santa and another one that says Naughty or Nice, and it's got little like check boxes, which reminds me I still needed to go back in and fill that out. He was very nice this year, so he did get lots of presents, so we'll be ticking nice. So once I'm happy with the placement of everything, I can commit and start sticking things down. So I've raised the top of the ephemera pieces up on foam pads and stuck the bottoms flat just to add a bit more dimension, and also because a lot of them are overlapping the envelopes, which I've already said are quite bulky, so I've had to raise them up to the same level as those envelopes. So just sticking my Postbox down at the top there. And then I work on the gap at the top of my layout between the two envelopes. It needed something to fill that gap, so it's just a case of going through the collection and seeing what worked. I tried a few bits from the journal bits and pieces and the bits and pieces ephemera pack, as you can see here, but nothing was really working. So I went through the tags patterned paper, and I absolutely love this paper and I am hoarding it. I need to get it on a layout. They just look so pretty. I'm struggling to use them. I just want to look at them all the time. So I opted not to use the tags, but I did find on one of the 3x4 cut apart sheets this stack of presents that I thought fitted quite well, because my little boy is posting his letter to Santa asking for his presents. So that worked for me. So I've fussy cut that out and I'm going to stick it up the top in that gap. And I also had a tiny gap at the bottom of them that needed filling. And in the, I think it was the journal bits and pieces that one's from, there's a round element that says ho ho ho, which I thought was perfect. So I've popped that at the bottom of my present stack, and that's plugged that gap really well. So I'm really happy with how that came out. So here I'm just fussy cutting amongst the bow at the top of the presents. And again, using foam pads to raise the top part up to bring it more to the level of those envelopes. And the same with the ho 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 piece, and that just tucks in really nicely there. So it's all coming together. I'm almost finished here. Just sticking a couple of bits down now on the joins of my envelopes. So the envelope on the right, where I didn't have a full 12x12 sheet left to cut it from, there was a tiny corner missing where it wasn't quite big enough, so I've just covered that up with that bird there. And now I felt like my layout needed a border, and I wasn't sure initially whether to use a patterned paper or to stitch a border. I just felt it needed framing. So I found, it's another Simple Stories paper from a different collection. It's called Sub-Zero, and the paper is Melt My Heart. And I felt like it worked really well because in the layout, so the bow on the presents that I've used at the top, the bow on the mail sack on the right, and also on that tab I've used to pull my letter to Santa out the envelope, all have like a lighter blue colour. So that border paper looked really cute. So I'm going to use that. But before I do that, I've just decided I want to add in some more gold thread. So I've used gold thread to stitch around the edges of my envelopes and wanted to bring in a bit more gold to balance the layout out. So I just added 3 clusters, one either side of my envelopes there, and I also add one up the top, on top of that present stack, just behind the ho 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 piece. And that's one I'm just tucking in now. I love this gold thread. It's by We Are Memory Keepers. It's really nice to work with. It doesn't really get on well with my sewing machine, but for hand stitching and thread clusters it works really well because it's quite a wiry texture. So it is my new favourite thing to use. So literally onto the last step of the layout now, I'm just adding some double-sided tape around the edge of that border, and I'm going to stick my layout down. And this is a first for me. I have managed to create a whole layout without distressing a single edge, so I'm really pleased with myself. So here I am just showing you those interactive elements. and that is the layout complete. So thank you very much for joining me. Please do head over to the blog, you'll find all the links for the bits I've used, and head over to the Papermaze shop because there are still loads of this collection left, and I think Vanessa has had some restocks lately, so I managed to grab a couple more bits. So please do head over and have a look. I'll leave you with some close-ups and I will see you next time. Bye!